U.S. trade negotiations. Well, now Ottawa says it's anticipating a mutually beneficial, comprehensive trade agreement with the U.S. And on Friday, you may remember, Trump said that he was ending all U.S. trade discussions with Canada because of this tax, which would have had U.S. companies like Amazon, Google, Meta, Uber, and Airbnb pay 3% on revenues from Canadian users. Prime Minister Mark Carney and President Trump said they are hoping to reach an agreement by July 21st. Okay, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is getting his opportunity to get back into the House of Commons, but Prime Minister Mark Carney, he has now announced a by-election for later this summer. Poilievre lost in April to a Liberal candidate in the Ottawa area riding of Carleton. Since then, he hasn't been able to sit in the House. The by-election will be on August 18th in the Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot. And Conservative Damien Keurig won it in the last election with more than 80% of the vote, but he stepped down in mid-June for Poilievre to run. Vancouver International Airport says operations are expected to run smoothly today, but that is far different from the weekend where hundreds of flights were delayed at YVR. Now, this cause isn't new. As Yasmin Renea explains, ongoing staffing shortages at Canada's Air Traffic Control Agency, they continue to have a major impact.
A way to pass the time with more than 200 flights delayed at Vancouver International Airport this weekend.
My first flight, Calgary to Vancouver, was delayed, 2 hours.
On Saturday, flights were delayed by 2 hours on average. The travel disruptions being blamed on an ongoing shortage of air traffic controllers at NAV Canada, the private nonprofit that manages air navigation across the country.
We don't want to see delays like this. It is frustrating for passengers, it's frustrating for us, it's frustrating for everyone involved.
The staffing crunch has been going on for months.
It's very annoying. It's cost the company a lot of money.
It reached new heights in May when an Air Canada pilot vented his frustrations to passengers stuck on the tarmac.
Since we got the time, if you want to write a letter to your MP and tell them what's going on.
On Friday, WestJet issued a statement saying more than 300,000 of its passengers have been impacted by the NAV Canada shortages since April. NAV Canada says it's working hard to train new air traffic controllers, but that takes time.
It's a highly skilled position, 24 to 36 months of training that's delivered by NAV Canada to become a licensed controller.
The association representing air traffic controllers says the profession has been historically understaffed, an issue made worse by the pandemic when there was less training.
All those factors combined to put us in a situation now where we're not able to train fast enough to make up for the shortfall and to replace the number of people that we're losing.
Vancouver's airport says Monday will be the busiest travel day of the Canada Day long weekend, with almost 88,000 passengers expected to transit through the airport. Yasmin Renea, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that's what we have for you so far. I'm Benit Brach. BC Today is coming up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Well, Ottawa is backing down on the digital services tax. Mark Carney says it means trade negotiations can go on. The White House, though, says Carney caved. What's your reaction, and where do you think Canada should go from here in its trade fight with the United States? After 12:30, as we head toward Canada Day, we'll talk about all the cuisines that make up our cultural landscape. You can feast on this question: what are the lesser-known foods you enjoy and want to celebrate? I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Thanks for joining us on CBC Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming as well on YouTube and on TikTok. Just search for CBC British Columbia, and you can share your comments on TikTok too. Well, last night, hours before it was to come into force in terms of the deadline for the first payment, Canada rescinded the digital services tax. Now, this comes just days after U.S. President Donald Trump said he would halt all trade negotiations with Canada over that tax. Today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said this.
Very simple. Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump in the United States of America. And President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax. That would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The President made his position quite clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister called the President last night to let the President know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a big victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
That's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Now, the White House has confirmed trade negotiations between Canada and the U.S. is resuming immediately. Prime Minister Mark Carney was asked about this concession and negotiations when speaking to reporters this morning in Ottawa.
To be clear, it's part of a bigger negotiation. It's something that we expected in the broader sense that would be part of a final deal. We're making progress towards a final deal. There's more to be done, to be clear. And as I just said, which answers the translation question, as I just said, is a question of timing in terms of the date for the final negotiations and when the tax was coming into effect. And, you know, it doesn't make sense to collect tax from people and then remit them back. So it provides some certainty. And as I just said, negotiations have restarted. We're going to focus on getting the best deal for Canadians. We're making progress. There's more to do, and we'll keep you updated.
The White House says you caved. Is that how it went down?
Well, that last question was asked as Mark Carney was already walking away. Well, we want to hear from you. What do you think of Canada's decision to back down from the digital services tax? And what should Canada do next in the trade war with the United States? Our numbers are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. Well, joining me now to talk about all of this is Max Cameron, political scientist at UBC School of Public Policy and Global Affairs. Hello, Max. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's nice to see you in person.
Yes, likewise.
This is a different song, isn't it, from just about a week ago, even days ago, from Mark Carney?
Yeah, and it really seems disappointing. It feels like a big concession, and it's not entirely clear what we got in return for it. It sounds from what the Prime Minister was just saying that this was a concession he was prepared to make. It may be that this is a policy he didn't support, but it's not clear to me what we got in return for it. Now, there are other countries that have these taxes.
Yes.
Britain, France, the Europeans have been negotiating. We decided to go it alone. We decided not to pursue a tax through a kind of a regional or multilateral approach. And that's tricky with the United States because when we get into bilateral relations with them, they do hold the cards, right? They have a much bigger market. They're much more powerful than we are, and they can extract these concessions. So I think we have to watch very closely and really ask ourselves as Canadians, you know, we voted for Carney to be a tough negotiator. Is that what we're seeing here?
Why are you disappointed? What has Canada lost here?
Well, that's really the big question. I mean, we've lost, at a minimum, I think the estimates are around $7 billion in tax revenue. these are
over 5 years, yeah.
over a number of years, right? And these are major corporations. So, companies like Apple and Microsoft, they have a larger market capitalization than our GDP. So these are massive corporations. They generate huge amounts of revenue through the services they provide to Canadians. And they're very difficult to regulate. So this was a step in the direction of addressing that problem, as many other countries are trying to do. It feels like a reversal of that. Now, it's possible that through the ongoing process of negotiating, both multilaterally and directly with the United States, we may be able to make some progress on these kinds of issues. But I worry that what we're looking at with the United States right now is a kind of a faux trade agreement, a bit like what the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has negotiated. They're not real trade agreements that are signed off by Congress. These are just arrangements that we make with the U.S. executive. And I think we're going to have to, and the timeline for those is very, very brief. So we're going to have to take a look at what happens in those negotiations. And in assessing the overall outcome, we're going to have to factor in the fact that it appears that we have just given away a very substantial bargaining chip.
If you're Prime Minister Mark Carney, though, and you have a bigger goal of getting an overall trade deal by July 21st, I mean, did he have any other choice when the threat is there to end all trade talks?
Well, I think the question that I would put is Carney doing absolutely everything that he can to reduce our vulnerability to the United States? They are bullies. They approach trade agreements with irritants, and they use their muscle unilaterally to try to extract concessions from other countries. That's what Trump is doing around the world. And frankly, he's being relatively successful in this regard. So are we going to come away from whatever it is that, we've given up this tax in order to be able to continue these conversations? Let's take a look at what comes out of those conversations. And I think we're going to have to ask ourselves the question, are we pursuing a path of deeper integration with the United States, or are we reducing our vulnerability?
Okay, when you say deeper integration, people are hearing that, and they're also hearing all the 51st state talks. I mean, how far do you think this could go?
Yeah, I mean, we've had 30 years of surrendering Canadian sovereignty, first under NAFTA, then under CUSMA. We have assumed that we could have a deep integration with the United States, and that would benefit us. We've placed more priority on that than multilateral negotiations. And I think now we're seeing the consequences of that strategy. We have to change course. And Carney has said that over and over again, that we need to have a national program. We need to return to focusing on building up the Canadian economy with all of the instruments that are at our disposal. In the meantime, we have to protect ourselves from U.S. bullying as much as possible. I think that fundamentally, probably, these negotiations with Washington are fundamentally about buying us time, minimizing the bullying by Washington until such time as we begin to see a shift in the balance of power between Canada and the United States, which could happen as early as the midterm elections. And in the meantime, building up our own capacity to develop our own economy, to diversify our trade relationships, to put in place industrial policy, to build out major projects and so forth.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask you about that as well in a couple of moments, because in fact, July 1st is kind of a deadline for some of those measures. Max Cameron is with me, political scientist at UBC School of Public Policy and Global Affairs. Love to hear from you. Last night, Canada decided that it would rescind the digital services tax, really at the 11th hour. And we're asking you, what do you think of that decision? And where does Canada go from here in its trade fight with the U.S.? Our numbers are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca and comment on our TikTok live as well. Let's take some calls now. David is calling from Vancouver. What are your thoughts? What's your reaction to this decision, David?
I was thrilled by it. I think I love the way Carney did what he did. It's the kind of game that Trump needs to hear once in a while. It's what's the song? There's a kid song, something that runs away, gets to fight another day. Well, I think it's all about that. It's all about that biding time. Trump he'll come down, but right now we've got bigger fish to fry in Canada and getting our own game together, getting our game a good game going with Europe, with Asia, stuff like that. Trump, yeah, I know the U.S. I don't go there anymore, but I think the long game is going to be getting some more time and building up our resources.
Okay, David, great to hear from you. Thank you very much. Live to fight another day. I don't know the song, but I take your point. Thanks very much. James is calling from Spence's Bridge. Hi, James.
Hello.
Yeah.
I like that one. Your guest, does he happen to know what type of taxes these foreign tech companies pay? Do they pay a GST? And if not, could the GST be applied to these tech companies instead of the PST? And it's 5% instead of 3.5%. And it'd bring in billions more.
Yeah, this was kind of a way to avoid other taxes, wasn't it? Max, if you can, do you know, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, I'm not a tax specialist, so I wouldn't want to speak to that. But what I can say is this, that one of the major problems that we have is that these are big service companies. They provide a lot of services to Canadians, but they're not located in Canada, so they're not paying direct taxes to us. Right. Because these platforms, in many cases, are so important, they absorb a huge amount of advertising revenue, and that revenue gets drained off of Canadian companies. So part of the goal here is to say, if these companies are going to be operating in Canada, providing services to Canadians, and then absorbing a huge amount of, not only in the form of the money that we spend on these services, but also the advertising revenue, they should be taxed. And these are massive corporations that can certainly afford that.
Let me just go back to James. Did you have a further comment on the decision itself?
Well, I thought the implementation of the 3.5% tax in the bill was rather low. Who pays 3.5% tax
on the revenue
in our corporations? Our corporations, I think, are paying 7 or 8%. So we need to somehow tax these foreign companies so they don't suck all the money out of Canada and create wealth elsewhere.
Okay, James, thank you very much for your call as well from Spence's Bridge. Let's take some reaction now with a business organization, business community. Jairo Yunis is the Business Council of B.C.'s policy director. Jairo, good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Michelle.
What's your reaction to Canada deciding to back down?
Well, trade negotiations are always tough, right? So there's always going to be some give and take. And we're hopeful that the federal government can strike a deal that works for Canadians in the long run. Now, the decision about rescinding the digital service tax, it was all about strategic prioritization. Canada, like any country, has to weigh the economic consequences. We need access to U.S. markets. Exports to the U.S. are around 20% of our GDP. And trade tensions threaten jobs, exports, and investment here at home. So it's strategic to pause and negotiate. And in a globally competitive environment, every country makes choices to protect its own economic interest. And that's what Canada did here.
So you're saying this was the right decision for the moment?
Yes. I mean, regardless of how talks unfold, investors and employers are deciding today where to put their next dollar. And that's where the government has to be really laser focused. And it's, again, like I mentioned, trade negotiations are always going to be a back and forth. They are tough. They're going to be hopefully not that long lasting. So, but we are hopeful that the federal government can strike a deal that works for everyone.
Max Cameron with me from UBC. He was talking about, there's also the need to bolster Canada's economy, to make Canada less vulnerable in the face of the United States, the measures that they're taking in the tone of Donald Trump. How much progress do you think the Mark Carney government is making on that front?
Well, we didn't enter into these trade negotiations, this trade dispute with the U.S. from a position of strength. Our troubles started well before President Trump returned to office. Over the past decade, for example, Canada has had the second weakest GDP per capita growth among 38 advanced economies. So yes, Trump's trade policies are a shock, but we're already in a vulnerable spot. Now, the Prime Minister has promised, for example, to remove all interprovincial trade barriers by Canada Day, and that hasn't happened.
Which is tomorrow.
Just tomorrow, yeah, we're still holding our breath. But the reality is that most of these barriers are under provincial jurisdiction. I believe the federal government has done what it can. BLC 5 is a good step. It's encouraging to see the federal government taking some leadership on it. We'll have to see if, for example, the federal government removes meat inspection rules, which have been a long-standing bottleneck when it comes to interprovincial trade barriers. But again, it's mostly on the provincial jurisdiction, and the real test now is the follow-through. Governments need to turn these commitments into real on-the-ground implementation.
Jairo, thank you so much for weighing in on this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Have a good one.
You too. Jairo Yunis is the Policy Director for the Business Council of B.C. Max Cameron, your thoughts on how Canada is doing when it comes to all removing interprovincial trade barriers, the things that Mark Carney has promised that he would do?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's really an important point to recognize that we need to increase our productivity and focus on investment in Canada. I think that Jairo's point is an interesting one. He mentioned Bill C-5, and that is a bill that's intended to make it possible to move quickly forward with national projects.
Yes.
One of the things that I guess concerns me both about Bill 5 and about this concession on the digital services tax is that it really seems to me that we're as David was saying earlier, we're putting a lot of trust in this government, delegating it quite extraordinary powers, watching it make moves internationally. We're not always sure what exactly the plan is or the strategy behind it. I think there's this is a newly elected government. Most Canadians are prepared to deposit a little bit of trust and faith in it to see whether it can represent us well. But I think that there needs to be a better strategy of communicating to Canadians what those goals are and how we're going to get there and how we're going to do it democratically.
And to that end, what do you think of what you heard from Mark Carney today, making those kind of brief comments with reporters? Would you want to see, a more substantial statement given this decision last night?
I think those comments were altogether insufficient. I think that the communication from the government has been altogether insufficient. We got our elbows up as Canadians and voted for a government that was going to be a strong representative of our country with the Americans. And I think what we really need to see is that they understand that we Canadians are vigilant, that we're watching, that we're not happy with having to make concessions, we're willing to make sacrifices and get us behind the government. So I think there's the strategy of Carney strikes me as being a little bit too technocratic and managerial for my taste. I love to see much more of a broad-based communications strategy and attempt to engage Canadians and tap into our willingness to make sacrifices if we have to disentangle ourselves from particularly this administration, but from the United States economy more generally.
Okay, an email from Elizabeth. First, I believe there should be a tax on these mega companies. The second part is that I believe the Canadian negotiators did exactly the right thing. So different perspective there. They have known this was a sticking point for the Americans for a long time. Let Donald Trump make his public pronouncements on halting negotiations and then announcing his big moment of triumph. Most of us are coming to realize these mean absolutely nothing. The most important thing is that we are continuing to negotiate. Let steady minds prevail. Okay, Elizabeth, thank you for your point on email, bctoday@cbc.ca. Ahalia is joining us now from Kelowna. Hi, Ahalia. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, Michelle. It's so nice to be talking on your show. I listen in every day.
Oh, glad you called in.
This is the first time I am so spitting mad I had to call in. I agree with everything that Max has said. And, I voted for Carney, and I was willing to give him a chance, but this is ridiculous. We have just handed over a very big card that we had. And Trump likes to say, I've got all the cards. And we had a very big card. We have lost so much money with this tariff. This was a good way to make it back. And I need a point of clarification. Does Carney have the power to rescind it? Was it put through by Parliament?
Oh, that's a very good
Yeah.
question, Ahalia, actually. That's a really, really good question.
Like Trump now just going ahead and making his own rules.
Yeah, Ahalia, thank you for that, actually. Let's clarify that, Max, if you will.
Yeah, no, these are strictly conversations between the executive of the United States and Canada. So obviously, Carney, as the Prime Minister, has enormous power within our system, and he can direct Parliament, his caucus, to rescind this legislation, and it can be withdrawn. So that is something that he can do as a leader of the party, the largest party in Parliament. Likewise, Trump has powers as a leader of the executive branch of the United States, but he is not ultimately the authority to negotiate trade agreements is with Congress. These are really not trade agreements. These are negotiations that are happening between chief executives in the two different countries, and they're about a delicate and complicated dance around how we address a series of irritants that primarily been put on the table by Donald Trump. These are not real trade negotiations. Real trade negotiations involve massive efforts to engage producers, labor, civil society. You put together a piece of legislation, and then it has to pass through the legislative process and go through legal scrubbing. That's not what's happening here. These are really deals just between the chief executive leaders.
And to that end, we heard from Pierre Poilievre, in fact, this morning on X, posting that he would have hoped that in exchange, Mark Carney would demand that softwood lumber tariffs would be removed immediately. And so that was the point that, to your point about what happens in exchange, that was Pierre Poilievre's comment today on this. Taking your calls as well and your comments on TikTok. Andrew writes he's completely sold us out, first with a 5% NATO, and now Trump is trying to destroy our economy for at least an economic takeover for U.S. interests. Thank you so much for your comments on TikTok. Another comment, Carney caved. And then Mel also writes, has Canada dropped the tariffs on tech? Why is Canada allowing Trump to look good? Okay, thanks for weighing in on our TikTok Live. Let's take another call here. Doug in West Kelowna, what are your thoughts on rescinding the DST? Hi, Doug. Okay, let's move on to Gail in Nanaimo. Hi, Gail.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on rescinding the digital services tax?
Pretty disappointed. It came out of the blue for us. Like Carney says, he knew it was coming, but we didn't. And it was, at the 11th hour, it was, and it's so disappointing. Like, I'd like to see our government show some testicular fortitude and stand up to this bully.
Okay, Gail, thank you so much. Let's try Doug again. Are you there, Doug? Okay, we've lost Doug in Kelowna. Some more. Yeah, you were laughing at that. Obviously, this is, we've heard the elbows down, I think was what Poilievre posted, and the comment as well as Carney caved. Some other comments, though, in email. Val writes, I say, very well played by PM Mark Carney. I believe this tax and its pending implementation day was one of our cards that was well played. Not only was it a good negotiating strategy, as it was inherited by the Carney administration, but it allows Trump to believe it was all his doing. I think this was a hidden option, not being made well known until recently, deliberately. It's giving the president the impression he has won, allows the negotiations to continue, then well played. The rhetoric of Canada caving is their perception, not our reality. Really interesting point as well, Val. Thanks so much. BC Today at cbc.ca. And let's wrap up our conversation here. We just had this email about, it's if giving the president the impression he has won allows negotiations to continue, then well played. I want to wrap up with Max Cameron on that question of multilateralism. What you were saying earlier about these negotiations are kind of false negotiations or false deals. What does that mean in terms of global relationships?
I think the key thing for us now is to work closely with the Europeans. I think that, and that's something that I think Carney does instinctively. We should throw our lot in with EU. We should work very closely with them on this and as many other issues as we possibly can. And if I could add one last point, I think an interesting comparison could be made here between this issue, the digital services tax, and supply management, because Trump is always after our supply management system. We don't concede on that because there are major producer groups that are regionally concentrated behind that. The digital services tax was an easy giveaway by Carney because there isn't a massive constituency behind it of people who are saying, hey, hang on a minute, except the public. And so I think it's great for people in the public to speak out on this and to express their views on the matter. But I think it was actually a concession that probably is not going to hurt Carney in the way in which a concession that really affected a local or domestic producer group would have.
Really good to have you with us. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Max Cameron is a political scientist at UBC School of Public Policy and Global Affairs. Of course, lots more coverage of this and reaction as well throughout the day here on CBC. You can watch us on all the CBC platforms. It's 12:31 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks for being with us. And coming up in our next half hour, we are going to talk about food and how we celebrate Canada through food, all the different cultures and all the different cuisines. What is the food you celebrate, you want to highlight that maybe is lesser known? I want to hear from you in our next half hour. That's coming up after the CBC News Update with Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Canada's first shipment of liquefied natural gas across the Pacific is being loaded onto a tanker at Kitimat and set for export. A spokesperson for LNG Canada says the Gaslog Glasgow tanker is docked at the BC facility's berth. The project is a joint venture between Shell and 4 Asian partners. RCMP in White Rock say a man has been arrested following reports of a knife fight last night. They say officers were called to the 1100 block of Oxford Street before 10 o'clock. The suspect was arrested at the scene. Police say another man who appeared to have been slashed by the knife was treated by paramedics. And we're learning more about a crash that forced the closure of Highway 97 south of Clinton for several hours yesterday. Police say a pickup collided with a motorcycle. The 66-year-old man on the bike suffered serious injuries. He's now in stable condition. No one else was hurt. And now the forecast on the north coast, rain this afternoon with a high of 14. Highs reaching 25 with a mix of sun and cloud in the piece. In the central interior, including Prince George, some sun and cloud with a high of 25 as well. Highs in the low 30s with lots of sunshine in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, clearing this afternoon with a high of 30. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, sunny with highs from 24 to 29 inland. That's your CBC News Update from Vancouver.
Thank you, Rob. You have a good Canada Day tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on BC Today. We're live on CBC Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming as well on all the platforms, really, on YouTube, on TikTok, and on the CBC News app. And coming up this afternoon, of course, is On the Coast. But tell you about the weekend. The weekend, this past weekend, was full of frustration for travelers at Vancouver International Airport. More than 200 flights were delayed, and YVR pointed the finger at the shortage of air traffic controllers at Nav Canada, which is the private nonprofit that manages air navigation services. Stephen Smart is head of communications at YVR.
At one point, the longest or the average delay was about 2 hours. So we recognize that is a significant impact on passengers. We don't want to see delays like this. It is frustrating for passengers. It's frustrating for us. It's frustrating for everyone involved.
Now, the staffing crunch has been going on for months. Nav Canada tells CBC it is working hard to train new air traffic controllers, but becoming a licensed controller comes with training 24 to 36 months. Nick von Schoenberg is with Canadian Air Traffic Control Association, and he says the issue was made worse by the pandemic.
All those factors combined to put us in a situation now where we're not able to train fast enough to make up for the shortfall and to replace the number of people that we're losing.
Now, an update today for you. Things appear to have improved for today. According to YVR, Nav Canada has not indicated they are experiencing resourcing constraints today. Flights currently operating as scheduled at the airport. You can go to yvr.ca for the latest. Well, as Canada Day approaches, we are celebrating Canada's multicultural tapestry through food. And we are asking you, what's a dish that you love to make or to eat that is perhaps lesser known? And is there a story behind it? And how has food given you that connection and perhaps even resilience in your community? Our numbers are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 as well on your phone. By email, we're bctoday@cbc.ca. And love to hear from you if you're watching us on TikTok Live too. You can just leave your comment there. I have two guests with me in studio. Chef TJ Conwi is owner of Ono Vancouver, and TJ is part of an upcoming event called A Night of Too Many Chefs, which is aimed at celebrating Filipino culture and healing after the Lapu-Lapu Day tragedy. And Chef Rocio Valeras is owner of Ruka Cocina, specializing in Chilean cuisine. And Rocio has just wrapped up an event last weekend with a nonprofit called Flavors of Hope that aims to empower immigrant and refugee women to earn a living wage. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Very nice to have you with us. Happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day.
Tell me about sharing culture through food. How does that happen for you, TJ?
I mean, it happens in all different aspects of our lives, right? Like being Filipinos, everything is all about food, right? Right after kamusta ka is kumain ka na, right? Like, did you eat already?
How are you? Have you eaten?
Yeah.
And do you have a takeout bag?
Yeah, exactly. and you're not allowed to leave unless you eat. So, so it's very natural for us and chefs to kind of embody that as well.
Yeah, that's so true. What about for yourself, Rocio? How does culture... how does food embody culture?
Yeah, well, the same thing. We are always eating together. And we have a long country and different recipes, but we all bring together the food, different recipes, but we celebrate also with food a lot.
And you're both very active in the food community and in your cultural communities. You know, Rocio, you started Ruka Cocina. But why did you want to be involved in a nonprofit that specifically aims to promote immigrant and refugee women and their businesses?
Well, first of all, this is a feminist place, so I love that they give you the power to embrace your food business. Sometimes it's a very male space, and when you don't dominate the language, can be harder. So I'm very grateful that this is a space safe for everyone. And yeah, we all know how to cook. We love food, so we share joy through food. So
joy through food. And TJ, I know about your advocacy. You also have for a while now been running a community kitchen with surplus food for vulnerable communities. But you have this event coming up on Thursday, A Night of Too Many Chefs. What made you want to be involved in that?
Yeah, so for many years we've been able to do this event with almost an eye for all the upcoming chefs in the industry. And this year we've been blessed to be able to tap on 8 different savory chefs that are all Filipino, and as well as the pastry chefs that we're gonna have there. So it's just so amazing to be able to also lift them up with the same way that somebody has done that for myself as well. So
wow, do you feel that way that somebody lifted you up?
You know, so in every culture and as well as every profession, you will always have somebody that is your mentor, and I feel like that just each one teach one, right? In this case, each one teach 8. So that's amazing.
And hopefully another 8 or 16 after that. What about yourself? Is there someone who's been a mentor to you, Rocio?
Oh, well, yeah. In my family, of course, my grandma, my mom, and here even Trixie, the organizer of Flavor of Hope, she has teach us so much and empower us everything. So yeah, I do have a lot of mentors. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about food. Rocio, do you have a favorite dish that you want to tell us about?
Yes, the name is called curanto, and it's particular from the south of Chile, from where I am. And I would say that it takes a village to do it because it can be made in a hole. You dig a hole in the soil and eat it with hot stones, or you can do it at home. But anyways, it has many stages. You have everyone cooperating in the buns, cleaning the seafood, and it takes all day.
I was watching videos of this, people making curanto actually in the ground.
Okay, yeah.
It's really involved.
Yeah, so it's a full day activity. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, there were definitely several people around that hole. But yeah, you take seafood, mussels and clams.
Smoked meat, yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of potato, and we prepare 2 types of buns with the potatoes, so yeah.
Put it on the stone.
Yes.
Cover it up
and you
with
go
leaves.
layering, with leaves. And
I'm getting hungry. I'm like,
you put it together, and then you need a lot of people to take it apart too. And then you eat it, and then you have a nap because it's so fulfilling that you need a resting.
Siesta, right?
Yeah, siesta for sure. Yeah.
Okay, and so tell me about the flavors that you experienced through this.
Well, it's definitely very warm. It's very cálid also because we drink it with wine. So you are always like in a nice temperature. And yeah, we have a lot of smoked meat, seafood. So it can be fresh, but also very like rich and dense.
Yes.
It's very fulfilling. Yeah.
And you said that this is from the south.
Yeah,
where
from
you're
the south. Yes.
What's the story behind this for you? Behind curanto?
Well, as I said, it's a family tradition. Every time that I go home, my mom knows that I have curanto.
Really?
we do it in a pot though, not in the soil, because also you can drink the soup with it when it's in the pot. So yeah, that means that my grandma is gonna be home, my sister is gonna wake up early to help. So of course, it's a very, very valuable meal for me.
And what do you want people to know about it? We're talking about, hey, maybe you don't know about this dish. Like what?
That we have, I don't know, more like 6,000 kilometers of coast. So we are very rich in seafood, and everyone should give it a try. Yeah, we have definitely perfect wine to pair it with. So everyone should give it a
Chilean
try.
wine.
Yeah.
We're taking your calls as well, asking you what is a lesser known dish that perhaps is your favorite that to make or to serve or to eat that you want to celebrate. What's the story behind it? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And you can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Our email, bctoday@cbc.ca, and our TikTok. We're live on TikTok right now, so you can leave a comment there too. Randy writes, a little bit of everything. The Northern Asian and recently the South Asian influences are giving their many gifts of flavor, texture, and fusion. You have chain retailers offering 10 different types of hummus, 15 types of dumplings, a plethora of dried and frozen ramen. Oh yeah, I'm in my ramen era myself. The future is evolving beautifully. Sushi on the hot days, longanisa, and fishball ramen on cooler days. And for dessert, Punjabi sweets and Cantonese gai mai bao. My goodness, Randy writes, I'm a retired chef and manager. I'm blessed to live in Burnaby, where cultures, food, and people peacefully coexist. What a beautiful email. Thank you very much, Randy. You can email us too, bctoday@cbc.ca. I just took a tour right there in that email. TJ, for you, what is your favorite dish that perhaps, it doesn't get served very often?
Yeah, so for me, it's much like what we're talking about with the with the moms and the grandmas being able to make it. We have this dish called patatim. So it's kind of like a Filipino Chinese dish.
Yes.
It's also called hongba in the south of Vancouver, of the Philippines, and it's pork hock that's braised for a long time. It's got a little bit of star anise, some peppercorn, as well as soy sauce, vinegar, and then you add a little bit of bok choy in the end, and it's just one of those meals that always brings me back to when I was growing up in the Philippines. I try to make it myself. I try to order it from other places. It's good, but it's always just that memory is not there. So I feel like that's kind of the lesson that I take from it.
Wow.
It's having that, it's creating your own memory. So now I feel like I'm making that memory from when I make it with my family.
You unlocked a core memory for myself, because I have not had or heard of patatim in a long, long time. But I had it a lot as a kid in the Philippines. And yes, I know it to be a Filipino Chinese dish. Mm-hmm. And so when I heard the term patatim this morning, I thought, oh my goodness.
Right?
I have not had it here, and that would definitely take me back.
And it's the same as like any other roast or a stew in the rainy day that will bring you back, right? So,
Rocio talked about her grandma and her mom. What about for you? What influence have you had from previous generations?
Yeah, so I was raised by a matriarch. I was raised by my mom and 6 other aunties that are around when I was in the Philippines. So it's like it's just so easy for me to like go to somebody's house and be fed all these amazing food, right? And like I said, to create all these memories and with that, you kind of try and bring that back with the same people here for your aunt, your niece, and your nephew. So yeah.
And how are you, what are you doing to make sure that those recipes stick around for the next generation?
Yeah, so much like I was saying that it created these things for me, I feel like just by showing them and just by giving them the food that I've been able to have in my own version, then they can create their own memories through it. And then hopefully they'll try to do the same and find their way through their food because, they are Canadians, they are, and they're not going to have the same kind of memories as when I had it in the Philippines. But here they're going to have their own and they're going to probably talk about it when they get older.
Yeah. And what about for you, Rocio? What are ways that you're hoping to be able to have these recipes continue on into the next generation?
Well, I take it as a responsibility because a lot of my generation, a lot of my friends don't cook anymore. So I'm taking the recipes, and even because we're from different parts of the country, right. I'm constantly asking them, like, how your grandma did it, how did it taste? So I'm checking and trying to perpetuate those recipes until today, right? So yeah, definitely write it down because the grandma used to be like, oh, you can see there how much you put. No, let's put it in written, right?
Just eyeball it.
Yeah. No, let's make it real. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so true, because then they're just assuming. I always think that's a trick, so that you never quite get it right, and then you always have to come back and visit. Is that
maybe? Yeah.
That's just my own perception. Let's put out the phone numbers again: 1-800-825-5950. Do join us and let us know what are the dishes from your culture that you would like to share that perhaps is lesser known. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And you can email us to bctoday@cbc.ca or comment on our TikTok live. So here we are talking about, putting forward these dishes that you love and that and you want others to know about. For me, as well, there's learning about all the different cuisines around, which is very easy to do around here. I've done it through, friends, either growing up and going to their homes, or going to try different restaurants. Rocio, what about for you? Has there been a moment for you when you said, oh my goodness, well, there's this cuisine that is new to me and I've just discovered?
Well, it never ends. It's constantly. And especially when I came here and I noticed all this Asian influence here in Vancouver, and I was so grateful. It's amazing. But I know Chinese food, but there's always something new that I can try, or a new recipe that I was brave enough to try last time. So yeah, it's a constant learning and exploring.
Yeah, all those regions as well.
Yes, like so different. Yes,
that's so true. And what about for yourself, TJ?
And you hit it right there, like the regional cuisines in Vancouver, not just like Chinese as a monolith or Filipino as a monolith. Like that's what I'm discovering nowadays. The northern Chinese dishes of like the noodle soup and the Filipino Pampanga cuisine, burro, like all this kind of like very, very specific dishes that like just kind of jumps at you, and you want to just you go in a rabbit hole trying to figure it out yourself.
It's so true. I remember when I first discovered xiaolongbao, which are these dumplings that are in soup, and they just burst with flavor and liquid when you bite into it. It was just a few years ago. It wasn't that long ago, and now I feel like I see it everywhere. But it was just like discovery for me, and I was like, this is my new favorite. I'd love to hear from you as well if you've discovered something yourself, a dish or a cuisine, perhaps a regional cuisine around your community. Love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Bruce is calling us from Osuyos. Hello, Bruce. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
Yes. What would you like to talk about? What cuisine and what food?
It's a Japanese cold noodle dish called hiyashi chuka.
Okay. It's cold. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Good. Tell me about it. When did you discover it? What was the story?
Well, I lived in Japan for a number of years, and you only get to have it in the summer. So even here in the Japanese sushi restaurants and that, they only serve it in the summer. So, just a nice, cold, refreshing noodle dish. And quite often they serve it with a ponzu sauce with that hot mustard, so it can have a bit of a spice to it. And it's made just with not an egg noodle like a vermicelli noodle. It's a light white noodle, and they mound it in kind of the shape of Mount Fuji. And then on the side you have cucumbers, carrots, egg, and then quite often imitation crab meat down the other side. So, yeah, it's flavorful and it's kind of unique.
And do you make it yourself, Bruce?
I do once in a while, yep.
Very cool. And do you dip it in the ponzu sauce and the hot sauce?
No, they actually pour it's served in a bowl, and then they would pour that sauce all over with a little dollop of mustard on the side, and then you can mix the mustard into the liquid if you want or not.
That sounds so good. Oh my goodness, on a hot day, absolutely. And pardon me, can you repeat what it's called, Bruce?
Hiyashi chuka. So HIYASHICHUKA, I believe. Hiyashi chuka. Yeah.
Love it. Bruce, thank you so much for the call. Happy Canada Day.
Yes, and to you. No worries. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, I've just learned something new. I was thinking about soba, which are cold as well, but that is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why don't we talk about that? It's going to be warm this week. So any suggestions from the both of you on hot weather dishes? Rocio?
Well, actually, I'm going to be at the farmer's market this weekend.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to bring refreshing cake it's called love cake. We do it in Chile, and it has a lot of raspberries, so it's very refreshing. It's sweet, but it's very refreshing. It has dulce de leche as well, so...
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it's very good.
I'm a fan of dulce de leche, so that's just rich and fresh tasting. That sounds so good. What would you like?
Thinking about it. You know what? For me, it's kilawin, right? So kilawin in the Philippines is marinated kind of ceviche.
Yes.
So this Thursday, actually, Chef Derek Sibayan from Holt Renfrew is going to make his take on ceviche. It's going to have some coconut vinegar, it's got ginger, a little bit of chili for spice, and then finish with that fresh coconut cream. Just gonna be so good.
Kilawin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember growing up watching the adults eat kilawin because it was what they would have with pulutan with their beer. And so I felt all grown up once I could have it. But you make a great point there in that it is ceviche essentially. And let's talk about ceviche. I mean, is that something that you're fond of as well, Rocio?
Yeah, we do have ceviche as well, and we have a lot of seafood. But I respect a lot Peruvian ceviche. We have a lot of influence of Peruvian in Santiago as well. I went to Lima as well to work for a month, and I fell in love with the culture, and their ceviche is the best.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, any, I guess, raw seafood cooked in vinegar. That's kind of it, right? Let's take a call from Vic in Chilliwack. Hi, Vic.
Hi, how's it going?
Great to have you on the show. And what's a food that you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about a Fijian delicacy, and it's called tin mutton. So it's mutton that's actually shredded. It comes in a can. You can usually get it in a Fiji specialty store or even in Henlong. And it's shoulder that's been cooked sous vide. It's been brined, and then it's chopped up and stuffed in a can. It's not the healthiest thing for you, but every Fijian knows that there's always 2 or 3 cans of tin mutton stashed in someone's cupboard.
I love that so much. I can see it. Does it also go by corned mutton?
Yes, it does go by corned mutton too as well. There's obviously a couple of grades. Usually they're in a blue tin or a green tin. Most of the lamb comes from New Zealand. And there are special different types, offset types too from the New Zealand brand, and you can only buy that in Fiji. So when we go to Fiji, usually our backpack coming back or our suitcase coming back has tin mutton in it.
Oh my goodness, Vic, I love this so much. Thank you very much. And there was a store actually in Surrey that I once visited, a Fijian grocery store. This reminds me, having gone there too. Tin mutton. It sounds almost like corned beef as well. That sounds excellent, Vic. Thanks for taking us there and telling us all about it. Happy Canada Day to you. And Basil is our last caller now in Port Coquitlam. Hi, Basil.
Hi, thank you. Yes, you can't, very rarely seen them in Canada. They're extremely rare. I've seen them once, and that's gooseberries.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true, actually.
And in England, I just relished and really enjoyed rhubarb and gooseberry pie.
Oh, my goodness.
They're both very sour, but if you get a dab of ice cream on that with that pie, you can't beat it. And I've never seen it in Canada. And it was a tradition we had in England. So grab for gooseberries. Whoever grows gooseberries, well done.
Yes, absolutely. If someone makes them, maybe they want to get in contact with you, Basil.
Yes, exactly.
I just saw some this weekend.
Oh, Basil, just hold on, because TJ just said he just saw some.
So my friend is from England, and he grows it in his backyard, and he's got amazing green gooseberries, and he said he eats it like jam and just eats it just like that. So it's delicious.
It just takes you back. Basil, thank you so much for that. I hope you do run into a good slice of rhubarb and gooseberry pie very soon. Happy Canada Day. That's Basil in Port Coquitlam. And so what are your plans for Canada Day? You're going to be at the Farmers Market?
Yeah, Mount Pleasant Farmers Market on Sunday, yes.
Coming up on Sunday? Yeah. Okay. What about yourself? You'll be busy getting ready for Thursday.
Yeah, getting ready for Thursday, talking to all the chefs, and part of it is that joy of being able to get connected with the chef, and then maybe you'll cook something special for us for Canada Day. Staff meal.
Exactly.
Usually the best meal.
Yeah, the best meal. Yeah. That's right. That's very true. Save the best for last. We have a post on TikTok, Cambodian food. Thank you so much for that. Good to hear from you on our TikTok live. My thanks as well to my guests, Rocio and TJ. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
What a pleasure to talk to you both. TJ Conwi is the chef who owns Ono Vancouver, but also is part of an upcoming event called A Night of Too Many Chefs. It's coming up on Thursday. Chef Rocio Valeras is owner of Ruka Cocina, specializing in Chilean cuisine, also part of a nonprofit called Flavors of Hope. Thanks to all of you for giving us a call.